Hey everybody, welcome back to Laptop Seniors. Today I saw something pretty interesting and I thought I'd show it to you. A company had put together the top 10 destinations for Americans and for Canadians to retire, but also to live and work as expats. In other words, there's a whole bunch of Americans or Canadians in these countries, and it's where people want to go. So you're going to see the numbers of Americans and Canadians in the country, and also the reason why they actually went there, skipping the job part, but did they go for the food? Did they go for the recreation? Did they go for the safety? That kind of stuff. Why did they go to these countries? Top 10 countries. And the last one is a surprise. It certainly was a surprise to me. I was sort of shocked, but then I thought about it and I thought, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Unfortunately, there's expats in these, people who work, and younger people, let's just say, not retirees, that are in these numbers, because it's really odd, but Social Security definitely tracks where they send checks and payments out of the country. That's roughly 475,000 Americans live outside the United States and they're on Social Security. So clearly they're retirees pretty much, right? But they don't actually track people, in countries where they are. And there's no numbers of that. I find that odd because you know where the check is going. But although, I guess like us, you'd get a check at home and then spend it in the country of your choice. Just sort of you're used to your same bank, particularly if it's a U.S. bank and you're getting a U.S. Social Security check, or you're, getting automatic, payment going into a Canadian bank because you're getting a Canadian, CPP, something like that. That sort of makes sense. Maybe that's why they can't track it. Anyway, let's get to the top 10 because I think you'll find it interesting. Number 10 on the list is France. 45,000 Americans live in France. 35,000 Canadians live in France. Pretty close number, probably because there's a lot of Quebecers who, obviously can speak French and would make an easy transition into France, even though the French people think that, the Quebecois French is bastardized, they're French, but whatever. Anyway, top 3 reasons why people go: world-class healthcare system. They have a great healthcare, rich culture, history, excellent cuisine and wine there, and the food is fantastic. Those are those top 3. Next in line is Greece. This may be a surprise. Why do they go there? Mediterranean climate year-round. Lower cost of living, that's a big draw. Beautiful islands and coastal living. You are in a different type of lifestyle. Number 8, Thailand. Extremely low cost of living. Tropical climate, beaches, excellent healthcare. There's a lot of healthcare there where people go there to get stuff done and, at affordable prices rather than get it done in the U.S. or even Canada. Because Canada, for a lot of things, the healthcare is free, but you might have to wait 2, 3, 4 years, like to get a knee replaced or something like that. And if you want it done quick and you can afford it, you go on vacation in Thailand and it gets it paid for. Number 7 on the list is Italy. Why? Rich cultural heritage and art, much like France. Mediterranean lifestyle and cuisine. Varied landscapes from coasts to mountains to beaches to everything. Italy is a magnificent country, and of course that food there is astronomically awesome. Number 6, Costa Rica. So why do they go there? Stable democracy and safety. Although, I'll pass this on. We've talked to a lot of people who have lived in Costa Rica, who have left, and they said it wasn't all that safe. Not that you're going to get hurt, but, petty theft, people, breaking into your place and taking small amounts of things. That seems to be fairly common there from everybody that we've ever talked to. And we've talked to a lot of people who've left there when we were living in Uruguay and in Argentina and in Panama. So, I don't know if I take that with a little bit of grain of salt, but, it's probably, that's the thought. They go there for safety and stable democracy, which it has. No military and focus on peace. That's a big one. Biodiversity and ecotourism opportunities and the environment and, everything beautiful. Costa Rica would be it. Next up is Costa Rica's neighbor, Panama. And why do people go there? Well, certainly for Americans, it uses the U.S. dollar as the currency, Right now, that's kind of a detriment for Canadians because the exchange rate is like $1.38, 39, so you lose a lot of money, but the prices are cheaper. The pensionado program with discounts, that changes a lot of things because it's easy to get. And with the discounts, all of a sudden the country's, that dollar or not dollar of US dollar, makes it a lot cheaper and it makes it affordable. And lastly, modern infrastructure and healthcare. It is a first world country in every possible way, Panama. Number 4, back to Europe, Portugal, 65,000 Americans, 45,000 Canadians. So why do they go there? Well, the Golden Visa program and the D7 visa programs are why they go. It's a way to get permanent residency. It moves you toward, you can actually get citizenship there and in the EU. One goes with the other. And a certain type of tax discounts, kind of confusing to some people and, mired in a lot of detail. But basically, taxes can be better and you can get a visa to live there, and that'll lead to citizenship. Excellent weather and safety. It's a very safe country, the safest one in all of Europe, Portugal. And finally, it's English friendly and affordable healthcare. Don't know about the healthcare for us personally because we didn't need it, but certainly a lot of English spoken in the bigger cities, like Lisbon. Number 3 on the list is Spain. Mediterranean climate and beaches, affordable cost of living, excellent public health care system. They got some spectacular cities there. And if you go along the Costa del Sol, it's really beautiful beachfront living all along there. Now, if you know Spanish, this next one would be a choice for you too. It comes in at number 2, Mexico. 1.2 million Americans live in Mexico. 180,000 Canadians. That's a big spread. 1.2 million to 180,000. I suspect a lot of those Americans are also dual citizens who maybe, grew up in Mexico, then moved and got U.S. citizenship and then decided to go back to retire or work there, or because they have both languages. Certainly a plus if you're in Mexico, if you can speak English. All of a sudden working in the tourism industry opens you up to, making a good job, good living, okay? Why do they go? Proximity to North America. Certainly if you're an American and you're going to Mexico, you're right next door. You just cross the border. You can drive, and many do. Number 2, significantly lower cost of living. Pretty much all over Mexico, it's lower than being in the U.S. and Canada. And third, it's warm, year-round. The climate is fantastic. So, what's not to like about that? Safety, a bit of an issue, but, obviously it doesn't show up on this. And finally, this was a surprise to me, and it probably is a surprise to you. The number 1 destination for Canadians and for Americans is the opposite country. Also, it's on the border. So 800,000 Americans live in Canada. 1 million Canadians live in the USA. Now, again, these are expat figures, so there's working people here, not just retirees. But I think it's pretty safe to say that there's a lot of retirees from Canada, especially in Florida, Carolinas, Arizona, Palm Springs, Georgia, that retired into the U.S. And there's certainly retirees who went from the United States into Canada. And oddly enough, if you're an American going into Canada, it can be dramatically cheaper because your dollar is worth so much more. An American dollar right now is worth $1.37, $1.38. So, if you see something that's cost $100 in Canadian money, for you it's somewhere around, $70, something like that. But going the other way, and a Canadian is going to burn if you're retiring into the U.S. Although we have found it that it's still actually cheaper, definitely because of not only food and things, but also your housing, your rent and things like that, way cheaper to be living in the U.S., depending on where you are. Obviously, if you're in New York City or San Francisco or Boston, it's not going to be that way. But under a normal city, pretty much most places of Florida, it's going to be cheaper for a Canadian to retire in the U.S. if you can get in, there's visas and all that other stuff. So why do they go? Shared language and culture, Healthcare reciprocity agreements, and close to family and familiar systems. Again, you're right next door, same language, everything is pretty much identical. TV shows are identical. Almost everything is identical, really, between Canada and the US. Different cultures to a degree, but probably 85% of it is similar. So there you go, top 10 retirement destinations for Americans and for Canadians, and certainly expats overall. This is where everybody went, probably not coming back.